As you begin to expand your ideas of what is possible in your career, you may land on something that you really, really want to create. And when it's downloaded inside of you, you just feel it. You just feel it in your heart, you feel it in your soul, you feel it in your intellect. And all of these, you get all these senses that this is what I want. I've been searching and now I know this is it. The only problem is there's a part of you that also is there, and that other part of you is saying things like, "It's impossible. You don't know how to do this. This is never gonna happen." So just kinda like taking the magic away from the joy of the dream that you just realized you wanted to do, right? And even though you're developing an expanded part of you that can see the big vision, if you don't do the inner work, more than likely the project will be shut down by the part of you that is afraid for years. And I speak from personal experience on this. So I really want to share this to save time and effort on your end, because if you start doing the couple of tips that I'm going to share with you today, you can more quickly go forward with the thing that you really want in your career. And you deserve that. You deserve to be able to serve on a larger scale and do the projects that you're really passionate to do. So, yeah, the good news is that you can resolve this inner conflict, and that's what it is. It's these two inner guides inside of you that are have different opinions and are pushing up against each other. And you can manifest your big vision over time. And you can serve on a larger scale if that's what you want, or whatever it is that you want, right? You can also receive on a larger scale for your genius. So if those are some of the parts of your dream, then that is resonating with you, but just put in any other parts in your mind that are your big dream. So whatever your big dream is, just conjure that up right now for this recording and think about, what is it about this big dream that I want? And I want to say, I want this for you, because when we get those big dreams downloaded, oftentimes it's being downloaded from your spiritual source, right? God and the universe are downloading it into you for a reason. It's because there's something inherently in you that is supposed to serve in that way. So I totally want this for you. So let's dive in, and I'm going to give you a couple of tips that will help save time and energy on your part to manifest this dream. So, when you have that divine moment in time and you get that crystal clarity, you're just so crystal clear. This is my vision. I just know it. Like, this is it. This is what I want. It's important to notice, and this is the first step, right? It's important to notice who wants this. As I've shared before, you have many inner guides inside of you. And so, like for me, I have my higher self. Everyone has a higher self. That's like the wisest part of you, the most spiritual part of you. Everyone has an inner child. I also have a driver, like a male part that's kind of like driven. Well, it's not kind of, like really driven, total action taker. I have like the inner artist. I have my inner mama. I have my mystic manifester. So you can have all these amazing inner guides. And the list goes on and on once you really start doing the inner work and getting to know yourself. And I have done this inner work for 14 years. I hired my first life coach 14 years ago, and she did this work with me. And I've worked with other coaches that use inner guides as well. I call it inner guides. Therapy calls it parts. There's different names that you can use, but it's basically just like the anatomy of the soul, right? The anatomy of the personality. But I have come to know my inner guides very intimately, and I do certain rituals on a daily basis to stay in touch with them and find out what they're needing and they're wanting. And so when this dream pops up, and you ask, okay, who is it that wants this? You can really be aware of what is answered in that moment. You can notice which inner voice answers. If you haven't done inner guide work before, you can just notice, what is the tone of this inner guide? What is the energy of this inner guide? Is this someone who is driven, or is it someone who's loving? Is it someone who's creative? But just acknowledge, this is an inner guide. There's an inner guide inside of me that wants this dream. And you can go deeper with her. You can also have inner guides that are a he, right? So, you can have both. But you can ask her, why do you want this? Because that's her passion. That's her drive right there, right? And she has a big why for sure. Absolutely, 110%. She has a big why. There's a reason she wants it. Maybe she finds it really intellectually compelling and interesting, and she just can't wait to sink her teeth into it. Or maybe she wants to make a bigger impact, maybe wants to be an author or speaker. Or maybe she's a fun inner guide. She's like, oh my gosh, this would be so much fun. So you can really notice the energy of who he or she is and why they want this. Okay. And then when that information is being downloaded in, write it all down. Write down her dreams and why she wants it and what she's excited about and how she sees it being manifested. So, from this conversation with this inner guide, you can tell a lot about this inner guide's personality. And so, you want to write that all down too. I have my clients give their inner guides names. So now you're starting to get to know each individual inner guide and give them names. So you can write down, okay, for me, my inner guide, that her big dream is corporate contracts and company trainings, which I have done several of those. And now she's getting even more focused on that. But you can get her to write down all the information about that. And so just getting to know her, right? And so for me, that inner guide for me, her name is Tess, and she's my mystic manifester. And she has a lot of reasons that she wants to do this. It has a lot to do with impacting society in a bigger way. And it also has to do with some other stuff. But these are all things that I have written down. These are things that Tess wants. She wants to serve in this way. It's happening, like it's already been created. It's happening. It was created first energetically, and then it started manifesting physically. That's how manifestation works, right? So, if you're not sure who wants this, you can sit down in meditation. So that's another tool that you can use for this overall tool of talking to your inner guide who wants the dream. You can sit down in meditation and you can just call her in. Like whoever spoke up, whoever perked up and said she wanted this dream, come on, tell me, like, who are you? What do you want? Why do you want this? And just letting it be channeled in. Yeah, you can ask her questions. You can totally ask her any question about it that you want. Now, you've gotten clarity from her. You know which inner guide wants it. You know why she wants it. But when it comes time for actually moving the dream forward and taking action, you may face debilitating fears. I totally understand this. I've experienced this. I've moved through this. I'm getting to the other side of this and help my clients as well. It's a normal, natural thing to be scared of things that we haven't done before. But I want to be so clear with you that the fear is not coming from that inner guide who's excited about it, usually. Usually, I would say, in my 11 plus years of coaching, I have seen that the fears usually come from your inner child or your inner teenage child. So somewhere in that range is usually where it comes from. It can be other inner guides can be afraid too. So I'm not saying that they're the only ones that get afraid, but when it's that debilitating fear of like, oh my God, no, like we're not doing this, when they're just like, putting their foot in the sand and saying, no, I'm not moving forward with this. You can choose to ignore the inner guide that is scared to death of this dream. And that will give you the same results that you've been getting. You will not move forward on your big dream. So if you think about it in terms of children, because it's like more than likely your inner child that's afraid, right? It's kind of like the child throwing the tantrum, and then the parent relents and says, okay, we'll do it your way. We're not going to be at either end of the spectrum. We're not going to ignore the child, nor are we going to shame the child. What we're going to do is, listen to the inner child or whoever the inner guide is that is afraid. We're not going to make them in trouble, and nor are we going to just, bulldoze over them, right? So we're going to listen. Why are you afraid? Tell me about it. And you can think of this, if you're a mom or if you love children, you can think of this in an analogy about children. If a child comes to you crying, oh my God, I'm so sad. Never, ever would you be like, you need to be quiet, stop crying. You would never, ever do that. You would listen to them. You would say, what's wrong? Tell me about it. Oh, she hurt your feelings on the playground. Oh my gosh, what would make you feel better? So you're doing this with yourself, like you're listening to the part of you that's afraid, the inner guide who's so debilitated in moving forward. And you're calming them, you're reassuring them, you're loving them. And then you're also like a good parent, right? You're setting a boundary with them and you're letting them know you're not on this project. If it's an inner child, you can let them know, like, you know, you're too young to be working on this project. You're supposed to be outside playing with your friends. Um, Even if it's an inner guide who is more adult-like, you can also really think about it. Is this inner guide supposed to be on the project? My driver, who's like the forceful male, like I'm going to get shit done, inner guide, he's not always allowed on bigger projects all the time because he can kind of take over and he creates stress around it that's not needed, right? So you can set a boundary with that inner guide and let them know, I hear you. What can I do to make you feel better? And P.S., you're not on the project. So that is so important. And, if you repeatedly do this over time, that inner guide is going to know, oh, okay, like I'm okay, I'm safe, I'm listened to, and I'm not allowed over here on the project. So um, just remind that inner guide, it's the other inner guide that's leading the project. And then redirect the scared inner guide, redirect that inner guide to something she is interested in. And so you have to know that inner guide too, your inner child, your inner teenager, or whichever inner guide is scared, right? You have to know them really well. And you have to follow through, right? You have to, like, if maybe you say you calm let's say it's your inner child that's afraid, and you calm your inner child down. Now they feel calm, they feel listened to, and they understand they're not on the project. Then you have to redirect their attention. What's something you would like to play with or work on right now? My inner child likes markers and trips to Target for bubble gum and lip gloss and cute dresses. She likes to be outside. She likes to go out in nature. Um, so there are things that that inner guide can do to redirect her attention, and you have to follow through with that. I can't tell you how many times I've sent my clients inner child a gift, right? It's developing that relationship with the inner child. I can't tell you how many times I've taken my inner child to Target and let her shop, and you actually let her pick out the dress, actually let her get some bubble gum. And they seem silly at times, but what you're doing is you're building inner trust within the system of the inner guides that are already inside of you, whether you do the inner work or not, right? So, yeah, the more you actually follow up with the quality time or gifts or words of affirmation or whatever that inner guide loves for her love language, but the more you follow up with those, the more you develop that inner trust with yourself, with all the parts of yourself, right? And um, if you keep listening to the inner guide with the big vision, and now you have that other inner guide that's afraid out of the vision, right? But if you keep empowering this inner guide that has the vision, she will eventually begin to move forward. But only if you've reassured the inner guide who is afraid, because otherwise, I promise you, your inner child will block your vision every single time. It's hard to imagine that a child could be so powerful and block something like that. But all I have to say to that is just imagine a child screaming in Target. That's how powerful a child can be like, no. So you have to deal with it. But begin doing this inner work, and over time, your inner guides will feel safe with you, and you will have a big breakthrough in your career. And that inner guide that originally had the vision, she's going to become more and more confident. She's going to be so clear. This is what I want. And she's going to own it. This is what I'm building. This is where we're going. This is what I'm doing. This is who I am. And you have to just really prop her up and give her the support she needs and clap for her. Say thank you for moving forward with us. Give her all the encouragement that she needs to move forward. And like I said, over time, your big dream will be manifesting. Okay, much love.